So welcome, my name is Bryce Gardner. I work for Withers Ravenel, and I do a lot of the stormwater project management and making sure all the field stuff makes it in the office, do some connectivity and quality checks, and kind of help them with any problems they're coming up with in the field. So fully functioning and free-flowing stormwater systems, as you all know, are vital to any town or city and the safety of their residents. Keeps things like this from happening. People getting out there trying to save their truck, not really considering their life that is happening. This was a storm event that happened last year, and the Crabtree Valley Mall in Raleigh, if you're familiar with it, gets flooded if it gets a lot of rain. So these guys didn't plan ahead of time and trying to get their car out of there. So Withers Ravenel help municipalities access federal funding to have their infrastructure inventory located, assessed, and mapped through use of grants. We use a GPS receiver that, I don't think I turned my, there we go. We use a GPS receiver that receives real-time kinematic corrections to get a location on most structures within 1/10 of a foot horizontally and vertically. When we can't get the desired accuracy that we need, we'll use a total station to kind of tighten those things up. Then we come back, we visit each structure again, collect some attributes about them. This two-pass solution reduces the chance that we missed something or overlooked something. Also reduces the equipment load for each visit. So you can imagine one guy or two guys going around trying with a GPS pole and a receiver, the controller for that, a tablet, another pole to put the camera on, a manhole pole, a crowbar for those difficult structures to get into. It's a lot to carry around, so we go once, locate everything. I'll take all that data, throw it into our enterprise geodatabase, and then kick that back out to Collector portal, and they'll access that through Collector. So during the assessment phase, we take notes, collect information about the features, take photos of the outside and inside with a 360-degree camera, record problems or issues where structures need repair using Collector for ArcGIS on a tablet or phone. We then report those conditions to the city or town for them to further inspect or analyze, as well as deliver digital files they can disseminate to their residents, town staff, and contractors. Also deliver these 360 photos to the client, which they can view with any free 360 picture viewer like GoPro, VR player. It really gives a whole lot of detail about each structure that you might not be able to capture in a standard form. They can zoom in on them, see where they've got problems coming and arising, see where they've got some seepage coming in. Depending on the length to the next feature, you can sometimes see light going out the other end of that one of the pipes. This also helps me in the office whenever they've possibly missed a field or whatever. Like sometimes they'll be just rushing through there and miss something. Maybe it's wall material. In this case, I can pull up that photo and see that it's made of brick. We use a fully integrated ArcGIS enterprise-based deployment so that edits, deletes, and additions made in the field are kept in real time once uploaded to the cloud, as well as allowing multiple users to edit the same data at the same time. If your organization doesn't have an ArcGIS enterprise-based deployment, it's possible to do all this with a standard ArcGIS online subscription. But the edits will need to be pulled down from you. They won't be instantaneous in your ArcMap or your ArcPro. Following workflow, I'm going to lay out for you to set up these using an enterprise solution. So first, create your enterprise geodatabase on your ArcGIS server and create a database user for anyone accessing that data, it's highly recommended that you create a headless user for loading that data, not somebody in your organization in case they happen to leave or the computer gets locked out. We name ours GIS, pretty easy to remember. We then load our database schema into the new Enterprise Geodatabase as the GIS user. That essentially makes that GIS user the owner of that data. Then give our users permission to view and edit the data. And then we enable attachments. The attachments are what allow us to add the photos in Collector by way of a related table. We do this for each of the feature classes we want to attach photos. Typically, you'll use manholes, inlets, outlets, and generic points. And once we've registered our data as version, we'll create a version for our field crews to edit as well as versions for anyone else that'll be editing the data. So there's about 5 of us in there, so just create an edit set or a version for each one of them. We then create a database connection file as your headless user using the field version and store it in the project folder. Then we take that connection file and register it with our ArcGIS Server Manager data store, and that registers it with the database, as we'll go over that later on. It's a good idea to go ahead and, when you're adding your data to your ArcMap, to publish it out. It's a good idea to use that connection file whenever you're adding it in there. It just keeps everything tight and connected, and you know that when you get to the end and you go to publish it, you're not going to get any error saying it's not registered with the data store. So then we symbolize our data in a way that will allow field crew to easily visualize their progress as they come along. Publish our data to our portal for ArcGIS from the map document and address any errors. Warnings you don't have to really do anything about. You can address them if you want. Excuse me. But it's not necessary. If you get an error, though, it won't allow you to publish at all. After we add that new feature layer to a map viewer, we configure each layer's pop-ups to optimize our field user's workflow, keeping only the fields that your field crew will be they need to edit, and organizing them in a way that will naturally be occurring in the data helps reduce emissions in your data. So taking off certain fields like edited by and edited date, they don't need to see that. That stuff gets automatically updated. Keeping it in a kind of naturally occurring order helps a lot, so they're not scrolling up and down that form, because they get tired of doing that and they end up missing some stuff. Finally, save the web map, update, sharing, and make some test edits on Collector for ArcGIS on your phone or tablet, just to kind of make sure it's all working right. It's a good idea to disable Wi-Fi at that point, just to make sure that you're not on your organization's infrastructure, because sometimes you've got some firewall issues that arise. Just go ahead and turn off your Wi-Fi. Make sure it's going to take that edit, open up an ArcMap session, see that it made it to ArcMap. That lets you know that everything's working fluidly. When setting up your project, it's important to keep in mind if connectivity in the area is going to be an issue. So some of our projects have poor cell service. That's just going to slow it down, and sometimes it won't even push the updates. So if you need to take it offline, there's a few things that you need to keep in mind. Minor adjustments need to be considered when creating the database and when publishing. And a lot of this is online on Esri's website, so you just make sure you're following the recommended workflow and everything's as they like it. So when you register your feature data set as versioned, if you click the register the selected objects with the option to move edits to the base, you're not going to be able to use your collector, because what it needs to do, it needs to make a copy of that. And if you move your edits to the base, it does not allow you to make a copy at all. So that won't let you do that. Layers with attachments being referenced by the object ID cannot be taken offline. So make sure you add your global ID to your data first before you create your attachments. And there's a tool in our catalog that relinks them with your global ID if you happen to skip that step or you forget about it and you're trying to get it take offline and it won't, and you get the error that's saying that you can't use attachments by the object ID. It's a pretty quick tool that'll do that for you, but it's just if you do global IDs first, you won't have to worry about it. When publishing your data to Portal for ArcGIS or ArcGIS Online, you must click Sync Enable. I also suggest turning off the Allow Geometry Updates. Let's just scroll this down here a little bit. Your field crew will still be able to add points and lines, polygons, but they won't accidentally move a point or a line vertex by accident. As they're sitting there punching everything in the screen on the form, sometimes that thumb just slips over top over there and they don't even notice it. But then you get it in the office and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Why is this way over here? And it's been done. It's important to make sure that the camera or device that you're using is compatible with each other and will allow you to control the camera and access the collector app at the same time. Some cameras are only compatible with certain devices or types of devices. Our Gear 360 can only be controlled by a smartphone, for example. It will not connect to a tablet, and it really prefers a Samsung. They're kind of proprietary in that. While our Theta camera can be controlled by phones and tablets, connection to the camera is done through a Wi-Fi connection, which means if your device is an Android and cannot use cellular and internet at the same time, then you're not going to be able to really control the camera and then push those photos up to the cloud at the same time. Keeping all your electronics charged can be a real difficulty. We use a combination of power banks, car chargers, and wall outlets from our lunch spot. We've got a lot of electronics that just don't hold up all day. So typically, the cameras, each one of them will last about 2, 3, 4 hours, depending on their level of use. So you can usually get those to last till lunchtime. The phones vary, just depending on which phone they're using, which tablet they're using. Some of our tablets will last all day. Some of them put them on, we call life support, about halfway through the day. You also want to figure out how you're going to get the camera into the catch basin. You don't want to have somebody stepping down in there to do that. So one method we used is a modified survey pole. So one of the guys at the office has a metal shop at home, so he can kind of alter some of these things, and he made it where we could connect it to the pole. This provides a steady and unwavering platform for the camera to sit on, which can be angled into irregularly shaped catch basins. We also sometimes drop our camera in on the end of a piece of paracord, Mission Impossible style. The advantages of this method are it allows for easier extending and lowering of the camera. So we've got that pole and you're trying to lower it down by a little flip switch. Sometimes you've got little greasy hands or whatever, and that pole slide all the way out. We lost one of those in a sewer system recently. So you can just lower it down easy peasy, just very, very slowly. Once you can see it on the tablet, you can see that you're low enough, and then you just wait for it to kind of stop spinning around and bouncing around a little bit. Domains are your friend. When your crews are in the field, there's an increased chance of them entering data that isn't consistent or grammatically correct. So you've just got values all over the place. You've got HDPE, you've got high density polyethylene, You've got RCP, you've got reinforced concrete. That just makes it all confusing for the client later on. Some of these sizes aren't right. I haven't seen a 3-inch stormwater pipe ever. What else we got here? We've got comments here. Good, terrible. You don't want to display. You don't want to give that to your client. I strongly encourage you to use the LGIM or the local government information model data sets that Esri publishes. Then just add the fields specific to your project or company using X-ray. Keeps everything where a lot of the solutions for ArcGIS, they are looking for certain fields to make that happen. And if they're not spelled right, or spelled differently, or in some kind of weird configuration, so you could have invert, or you could have invert out, or you could have invert underscore out. And when you're trying to make all that stuff mesh and talk to itself later on, and it's just, you got to go through there incrementally on each field. Why isn't this one working? Because it's wrong. X-ray is an add-in for Arc Catalog that I found helps keep your fields, domains, and feature classes neatly organized through an Excel spreadsheet. So it's right there on the Esri website. You download it, add it into your Arc Catalog, and then it brings up an Excel spreadsheet view of your domains, your data sets, your fields, and you just add them in there line by line and fill out the spreadsheet. And then you just load that into an empty file geodatabase once you've got it where you like it. Never forget, reconcile and post often, even especially if your field crew is accessing the data at the same time. So I don't know how many times we've had problems where somebody's editing things and then they went all day, they didn't edit, they didn't save, they didn't reconcile and post, and the field crew's out there doing stuff at the same time, and then you've got 30 errors coming up when you try to kind of get all that stuff going back together because they touched something, one feature, they each touched the same feature at one point. It's a real headache. Symbolizing your data in a way that allows your field crew to easily visualize their progress within your ArcGIS desktop application before publishing is, I say, really important. The Symbology Selector within the map viewer on your portal or your ArcGIS online, it's really lacking. So you basically get these shapes. And that's fine if you're only, if you've only got like one feature. But as you can see here, well, you can't see all of it, but if you symbolize it in our map, it carries that symbology along with it as long as it's not a complex symbol. So it doesn't allow like picture points, for example. Bookmarking your area of interest will save you time when viewing your data from somewhere other than your project area. So a lot of times, once I get it set up and I'm testing it, I'm in the office. I'm not in the project area. So having that bookmark really helps out. You just go up to the top and tell it to find the bookmark that you made, and it brings you right over there. Otherwise, you're panning out of that map on your phone, and you're looking around, and you're just getting really frustrated trying to find that data. Perhaps most importantly is keeping an open dialogue with your field crew. I check in with them regularly, especially in the beginning of the project, to ensure the forms make sense to them, they easily flow, and also perform some quick quality control checks on the most crucial fields. Make sure that you can catch any errors, anything they're omitting pretty early. That's all I got. Any questions? Excuse me? Yeah.
What material is that? Like fiberglass?
The pole? I'm not 100% sure of that. It's a standard survey pole. It's pretty light, but I don't know what it's made of.
The 360 camera, is that, do you put that on as an attachment? Or how do you get that?
Attachment to what?
Well, like if you're using a collector, you can just enable attachments to put documents or pictures or movies like we do.
Yep.
Is that just another attachment?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you open up you're controlling the camera at that time, and you just export that image out onto the phone. So then when you're in collector, you just tell it to add an attachment, and then it goes to your photo gallery, and it's the last one that was put on there.
Now, for users, like say they're using ArcGIS on the web app to view it from their PC, they need a special software to be able to pan that 360.
So a GoPro VR player is free that you can download from their website, and they can literally just take that photo or that link to the photo in ArcMap or the viewer, and just drag it into the viewer and pan it around. It's really easy. Anybody else?
So your presentation was story map. How was your overall thing of using that to do the presentation?
I like story maps a whole lot. As long as you've got internet access. I mean, it's right there in your portal or your ArcGIS online account. Pull it up and just add your images. Videos, it will only take 10 megabytes, so you have to publish that somewhere like YouTube or something else. But it'll let you link to YouTube or Facebook or any other web address. And it's pretty user-friendly. This is the Cascade option, I think it is. They've got a whole bunch, but this is the best I've found for using like PowerPoint. Thank y'all for coming out.